Hey guys, this is Chase with Velocitalks, and today I'm going to be interviewing Alex Martinez, who is an amazing entrepreneur. He co-founded a biotechnology company that is working with researchers that are looking into an antibody that can possibly extend human life. So I hope you enjoy. The main thing that I think is really cool about you is that you have started up a biotechnology company. What is it called and what do you guys do?
So my company is called Oxytope, and it is a UC San Diego spin-out company, and that means the technology was invented in labs there and was licensed by my company on an exclusive basis so that we can translate this basic science into hopefully products that can help patients. You know, the stuff that we're doing at Oxytope, it actually developed over 3 decades ago. I believe one of my scientific founders actually began working on this a year before I was born.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, and he started out with atherosclerosis research, so looking at heart disease.
Yes.
And
I looked up this term, atherosclerosis, before you came along.
Okay.
Because I found it on your website.
Okay, cool.
And the most interesting thing I found is that it says almost all people over 65 are affected by it.
Yeah. It's still the number one cause of death in the United States. Despite all of the lipid-lowering treatments, you know, what was referred to as the bad cholesterol, LDL-C, we can essentially take it down to zero. But people still die from heart disease.
Like we said, so much research to be done. They keep going back and forth, like cholesterol is good, is bad, should we eat eggs? Is eggs bad for you, or is eggs good for you?
Yeah.
So that's what's coming out, huh?
Yeah, and so we're really understanding sort of what drives the atherogenicity of LDL-C. And one of the things that they saw is that oxidation, right? You know, everyone understands oxidation, at least, you know, if you've ever had something rust,
Yes.
you understand oxidation.
Something getting old and just becomes brittle.
Precisely, and so you can take something like tempered steel, it's strong, it's amazing, you do all kinds of stuff, you beat it up, reshape it, reform it, but once it oxidizes and it starts rusting, it becomes brittle.
And our bodies grow old just like that.
Yeah, so
we're malleable when we're young. When we get old, it becomes brittle.
And so, you know, it's one thing if you have a rusty axle, you can replace it. What happens when those are components of your cells or molecules in your body?
Yeah.
Well, your body is going to recognize that that's worn out. It's a damage-associated molecular pattern.
And we're not like cars, we can't just replace parts.
We can't just
We're not
replace
as
parts.
easy. We don't just come apart with bolts and screws.
Exactly.
So we got to take care of ourselves.
Exactly. And so we have systems in place that are designed to help clear this debris. Our immune system actually is able to use oxidation as a defense mechanism because it would destroy the outer coating of a virus or bacteria and then enable the body to recognize it and clean it.
When I met you, I thought, wow, you said that you've done other things before this, you're into so many different things, and for your age, I'm just like, wow, you've done a lot so far. Tell me how you started this biotechnology company.
So I think you're crediting me too much. So I went to law school right after college. So I was a young man, armed with a professional degree, and entering a very boring career field.
Okay.
So I was a corporate lawyer in Silicon Valley. And so the way I think about that is you're like the kid doing homework for all the jocks. They're having all the fun.
Yes.
And you're doing the thankless, busy work.
Okay.
So if you think about, yes, I still work with corporate lawyers. I still, practice corporate law, as needed, which we need to do because in a startup, of course, you wear multiple hats. But in Silicon Valley at the time, I saw all these cool people creating and innovating, and I was essentially staring at the same 5 documents over and over again. I was doing venture capital financings on behalf of these companies, and I recognized early on that that's not something I wanted to do long term, and that was actually expedited by the economic crash in 2008.
Okay.
I was part of the Bloody Monday layoffs.
Oh, no way.
And received a nice severance package.
Okay.
And I remember the night before the announcement came, I said, I was not afraid of being laid off.
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid that I kept my job.
Oh.
So it really already was at that point where I said, oh no, if I survived this round of layoffs, I'm never going to leave.
You were hoping for the layoff.
I was hoping for the layoff.
And you got what you wanted.
And I got what I wanted. And,
nice.
And part of it was, a risk I took because I had moved from a much more stable group to one that was new and fledgling. And again, that's my personality. I'm always interested in, hey, well, what is the new area where, we don't have an established set of clients, because I loved going out and meeting young companies and entrepreneurs. It's kind of like when you do a bunch of different tasks and you say like, man, I really love this one task and I don't like these others. Mm-hmm. So in the course of that work, they would always let me review their business plans. Ooh. And we would have these amazing conversations about that, and I'd offer them a bunch of insight. But my job, and what I earned a salary for, was negotiating contracts and dense legal documents. Yeah. So really what I loved was helping them create strategy and tactics to grow their business.
Yeah. So you wanted to start your own business, though?
Yeah. So
partly too, huh?
Exactly. So that kind of provided like the sort of the back of the restaurant perspective on the operations of the startup, on the ecosystem. And then I was able to leverage what would have been a career ender for most people, which actually served as a foundation for me to...
One door closes, another door opens.
Yeah.
So as far as Oxytope,
yes,
and the current projects you guys are doing, what are you working on right now?
So in terms of what we're doing as a business, we're getting ready for our Series A fundraise. So we're doing broad outreach to a variety of venture capitalist firms. And this is on the back of 3 recent publications we had in June. Mm-hmm. One was in Nature, which is one of the top scientific journals. And we really were the first to show in an animal model that there was the ability to intervene by directly targeting this oxidative damage. And we showed that there were positive effects in heart disease, in bone disease, osteoporosis, in liver disease, systemic inflammation, with a longevity benefit as well. For again, these are mice.
But the mice are living longer.
Yes, they're living longer. They're healthier on a variety of parameters, and this gives us hope that we can translate this into human populations, and ideally would like to see the same benefit that the mice saw.
And how? What is it that you're introducing to the mice to make it happen?
So it's a good question. So these mice are actually genetically engineered, so they are expressing an antibody to this oxidative damage, and then we're able to recapitulate a model of disease using diet or using an outside agent to trigger a disease.
Mm-hmm. And so these diseases, you're saying, basically they're giving the mice a disease and then trying to fight the disease?
Yeah, and just seeing what the effect is. And so we'll have a mouse that is on the same, we call it the Western diet. So it's the diet that none of us should be eating because it causes heart disease and liver disease in mice.
Okay.
So we have a control group that just has this diet, and then we have, an experimental group, and that mouse is expressing our antibody.
Expressing the antibody, how? What is the antibody?
So the antibody is pretty interesting. It actually was designed based on an antibody that was isolated from human fetal cord blood. So we haven't done the hard work. Evolution did the hard work.
Oh, perfect.
And they designed a natural antibody that targets this sort of common target that's shared between dying cells, certain types of pathogens, certain bacteria that actually causes early infant mortality, as well as molecules damaged by oxidative stress.
Got it.
And so it appears that nature created this
antibody
to protect, infants and juveniles.
We can't go up against God when it comes to creating that kind of stuff. Like, nature is going to create the best stuff. We can just use it.
Exactly. And so that's essentially what we did is that informed how we designed the antibody for the mice.
Mm-hmm.
And what we really wanted to understand is, does this have an effect in disease?
Mm-hmm. And what did you find?
And we found it has a very significant effect.
Tell me what you were thinking about when it comes to finding a reference point, where you are and where you're going.
Yeah, so I think that it's interesting because I've never actually sat and thought about what my end game is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the way I think about my values is it's the same thing if you have a map, right? You're always going to have to look down at the compass rose in the corner to orient yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can go anywhere on that map,
mm-hmm.
but if you want to know where you are
mm-hmm.
spatially, you're gonna look for a reference point.
Yes.
So the way I think that clearly articulating your values serves you is making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much about the end goal, it's about the decisions you make throughout your life.
Yeah.
And as long as you're making decisions that are consistent with your values,
yes,
then you're able to reflect on where you are and the path you've chosen
it's almost
to
like
feel good about it.
It's almost like how enjoy the journey while you're on the road.
It's a way to make sure you enjoy the journey
mm-hmm.
and ensure you're plotting a journey on a road that you actually want to travel on.
Right. Not only enjoy it, but make sure it's meaningful, make sure it's important, make sure it's something that you resonate with.
Yes, and you said something earlier that where you're talking about, many young people may not know this. I think it's just many people may not know this.
Sure.
And I think that a lot of people have gotten on a road that they don't even want to be on.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the way I kind of think about, my path, where I end up on a road and I was like, I'm not sure I actually want to be here.
Oh, yeah.
And
you're right when it comes to young and old. Actually, the problem with older people is they've been on the road so long, they stop asking themselves if they should get off of it.
Yeah, they stop looking for an exit.
Yeah, they're just on it and they're just going.
And when I see people like sort of lament and almost criticize sort of the millennial generation, which takes a lot of hits, and which I think I'm like one of the oldest millennials. I think I'm like the grandfather millennial. Actually, I think it's because they're questioning.
Yes.
And they're referencing a set of values that no one else knows about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's completely reflected in their purchasing choices, work decisions, relationship decisions. Yeah, they might be with a job for a couple of years and realize, like you said, take a little inventory and be like, is this where I want to be? Is this what I keep on doing? And if the answer is no, then they're not afraid to restart. Yeah.
And that's important.
Yeah.
Because it keeps the whole society fluid.
Yeah.
Like society can become rigid
mm-hmm. if
people are just doing the same thing over and over again. And it's all about balance, You have to be able to reevaluate things.
Exactly. And so I think that's where... So I think values don't really change.
No.
They're actually pretty constant.
Yes.
And by using it as a reference point around decision making,
yes,
it means that you can be adaptive
mm-hmm.
but remain true to yourself. And that's how you seize opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You'll see them. People talk about being in the flow. Like when you're doing things and you're moving, you do make better decisions. And when opportunities arise, you do take them. And being healthy is a big part of that. Hopefully your development, whatever comes to be, when it comes to the market, if it can make people healthier, then it's going to just improve not only their physical selves but their spiritual selves.
Yes, and I think that actually is a really important point, because it's sort of why I'm doing this. Because you can't be your best self. If you look at a wounded animal, like you can't, I can't fault that animal for snapping at me. I can't take a wounded or sick dog and say, oh my gosh, that dog's so poorly behaved. It snapped at me, it barked at me, it growled at me, it went to the bathroom, like in my house, like.
And we do that to each other.
That's how we are, and so that's that kind of perspective that I have, and what I hope is that by providing what I hope to be transformative treatment eventually, that then people can get outside of their own sickness and think about, hey, where do I find meaning?
Yes.
How can I help other people?
See, these are the big questions that I hope to tackle. Like, I think as a society, we're so interconnected now, more than ever, because of technology, being able to talk between fields, whether it's being able to read online about research that's being done in other fields. Finding those connections is going to create a better, healthier society by, allowing us to see the reasons for things. So when you talk about the wounded animal, recognizing that it's wounded and understanding why it acts the way it is kind of like what you said. Instead of reacting meanly like with other people, understanding why they are the way they are is going to be necessary.
Yeah, so it's a person-centric perspective.
It's like humanism. Have you heard of humanism? Yeah. It's like a philosophy of person-centric.
Yeah.
And I think it's...
And there's been attempts at humanistic medicine for a very long time, and it's still not there.
Right.
Because we're treating sort of the symptomology.
Yeah.
We're not treating the person and the behaviors and decisions.
Yes. That's what I'm talking about with interconnected. Like, if a physician's looking at a person, looking at their symptoms, giving them a pill to alleviate the symptom, but not looking at the cause, it's not effective.
Yeah, and if you think about that person's energy, it's devoted to managing a disease.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Which takes them away from
living,
having positive relationships.
And that's all circular, because having a positive relationship is going to make you healthier.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You look at people with the worst health outcomes, guess what? They have no social networks.
Yeah. That's the integrated, life, like taking into account all the different aspects.